Doing hot seats is always a hard task to do, but I'm excited to go over this last major and talk about who I think are the hot seats. So going over the stats, I'm going to not count the Pro-Am players, just go over the bottom 5 players of the major. And number 1 is Clayster with a .86. We got Vickle, Kenny, Neptune, and Accuracy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the bottom 5. So immediately right off the bat, it's very impressive that the Surge were able to get to the finals with Accuracy, with one of their players being a bottom 5 KD in the major. Now, because they played so many more matches, it's going to make the KD a little bit less than players. If a player only played 2 matches, their KD will be a little bit less. It's less impressive. It's less of a detriment if their KD is low. So, Seattle did play a lot. So, him being lower than some of the other players, maybe not as big of a deal, but still a huge deal as they went to the major. Then we got Neptune. Kenny being bottom 3 is very surprising. Watching him, I felt like he made some good impact. It didn't feel like he was quite up to Kenny level, but seeing him down here is surprising. And then Vickle, that surprised me a little bit, not too much. I've been kind of impressed with the way he's been playing recently. And then Clayster being bottom is not shocking at all with the way he's been playing. I'm not saying we should drop him or anything, but just the way he's been playing this last major, some of his tweets, the way he's been reacting to it, it's just .86. Not terrible. No one's a .7 yet, which is great. I know Spart was a .7 in the major 1. But yeah, so then we look to the power standing, the pro standings based off the CDL points. Right off the bat, Ravens, Breach, hilarious at the bottom. So coming off the very first week of the qualifiers, Breach and Ravens were in everyone's top 5. They were the 2 teams that looked the best. So we can already deduce the reason why they were good is because the M4 was in play. As soon week 2 came around, M4 taken out. Both these teams have not won a match since. They're 0-4 with no M4. 0-4 without the M4, baby. And just not looking good. Their map win percentage is in the 30s. Not good. Only 20 points, along with the LA Gorillas, Optic Texas. So, yeah, if you're an Optic Texas fan, disappointing, depressing. There's been some talk about maybe they might make some changes. I really doubt it. Not this early, at least. However, I did call it. I said, as soon, because if you don't know, in the beginning of the season, during the whole offseason with player acquisitions and player cutting, Optic cut Dashi and Illy. And we also know that at the time, Scump was thinking about retiring, and Shotzi was planning on leaving if Scump retired. So there's a chance Optic had all 4 gone, but they turned it around within 3 days. They brought Dashi and Illy back. I thought that would play a role. I know a lot of people thought that could be a benefit. Some people thought it'd be bad. Some people thought, who cares? But I just know as a person, if I was cut from a team after I felt like I performed, especially Dashi, he was a top 3 player. He's got to feel somewhat hurt from that. I just felt like that mentality brought to those players would be bad, and it's not looking great right now. Scump didn't look as good. He didn't look as good as he did in the qualifiers. Just this whole team didn't look that good. They were able to make great plays, but plays don't win you anything. So then the Legion and Florida both having 30. Very, very impressed. I'm gonna say I'm slightly scared to do my power rankings tomorrow or whenever I do it. But yeah, it's gonna be very hard to rank some of these teams because it's just hard with Optic having the superstar potential they have, not putting them higher than maybe what they should deserve. And then Legion, it's hard not to look past what they've done. I mean, they were able to get top 6, but kind of in a hard fashion. It's gonna be hard. So next up, Thieves and Rocker both have 40 points. So Thieves have been disappointing, at least in the major. And then Rocker had a very bad loss. Still hazy. Like I said in my power rankings, I put them in the hazy tier. Just I don't know. Then we got 3 teams in the 60 points with Ultra, FaZe, and Surge. Not surprising at all. And the number 1, the Subliners. This whole major really helped Surge out. They were in the bottom with Paris before, but now they jumped all the way up to 4th place. Basically, tied for 2nd place with points. And they really needed that. FaZe just are not looking the same on Hardpoint. They're still trying to figure it out. There's not much to say. I mean, they are just the perfect example of consistency. Bring out RCDs, bring in Slasher. They're still performing so well. Ultra, I think, are going to be Titans throughout the season, and Subliners. Here's the thing: Ultra, FaZe, Surge, Thieves. These are 4 teams that I know with the Surge, we saw them go up and down last year, but I'm still going to put them in that category with Ultra, FaZe, and the Thieves. I believe all these teams will continue to progress and just be consistent slayers, consistent potential competitors in every single major. Subliners, because this is a whole new squad, and we have no idea if we're going to see another Vanguard season where every single team wins a major. Every single major was a different winner. We don't know if that's going to be the case. I will say I need to see if the Subliners can continue this through into Major 2 and actually get a top 3 placing in Major 2, then I can cement them. But Call of Duty is so difficult to really be consistent and be like that if they are able to do it for 2 majors straight, then I will put them in that tier with those 4 teams. Now, I'm not saying that their power ranking is going to be like a bottom 5, a top 5 team or less, but I need to see that for me to think that they're going to be a consistent Sunday special play team. So that's about that for that. Going to our players, our hot seats. I'm going to give number 3 to. So I have my players, but I've still not settled on who's the top seat and second seat and third. I'm going to give number 3 to Spart. Now, coming into this whole major, after major week 1, I gave Spart my number 1 seat, deservedly. If you complain about that, you're not watching. I could easily put them higher, but I'm only not going to put them higher just because their team did not even perform in the major. Let me see. I can't remember if they made it into the bracket. If they did, they didn't win anything, right? So because they just didn't have much of a impact on the major, it's hard for me to put them there. But if we go to the stats again, this is just one tell, right? Only 150 kills. He didn't play as much, right? Only 150. TJ Howley had 400. But just a 0.85. Every time I watch LAG, I feel like he's the player kind of slacking them down, bringing them down. And I'm not calling, again, hot seats, I'm not calling for anyone's job. I'm not saying you should cut these people. But what I will say is this. This team might be making changes in the future. And if they do, don't be surprised if it's Spart. He'd already been cut. Usually players who've been cut once before tend to be cut again. But, just whenever I watch him, I just feel like he's the one slacking. I'm not saying he's a slacker, but he's just not performing on this extent that the team needs him to perform. And I feel like with him gone, if they were to cut him and they brought in a player who would perform and get at least a 1 KD and actually feel some impact coming and not bring the detriment of it, I feel like this team could really improve. And again, Spart could be that player. He could perform himself and get better. We've only seen 1 major, so usually changes come after Major 2, I feel like. Unless things are just horrific that you need to change. And I'm not quite sure if any team's there. I mean, it's so quick to really cut Boston and say for them they need to cut someone. But, Ravens, Boston, LAG, and those are the teams where I just really feel like if something's going to change, it could be them. But I wouldn't hold your breath. Number 2, I'm going to give to Accuracy. Ooh. So, I already mentioned it. He is literally a bottom 5 KD, and he made it all the way through with his team. He is the Iceman. He's the clutch man. He really needs to perform. And the fact that he's not performing in moments, it's such a drag on the entire mentality of the team if one player is not performing to the extent you need. Now, I will say, he really popped off on just a few maps. He didn't pop off enough to get him out of the hot seats. You know, he's the clutch man. He needs to clutch up in the S&D. He had one great series of S&D. Other than that, he was a liability. If there was a clutch moment, he did not clutch up. I'm starting to think. I've said before. I just don't know if a in-game leader like accuracy is worth the give up of getting a potential Slayer. Like, I just feel like when we saw FaZe in their best, like during Cold War, when they were just winning everything, all 4 players were slaying, and it just felt like that was the most important aspect, is just having 4 players who all can slay out and be consistent together. Having players like accuracy, and even Mac at times, he can be inconsistent. Having players like that really are going to drag everything down, and even though he's such a great in-game leader, he does bring some great clutch moments sometimes. I just felt like if accuracy was able to perform as a main AR, as Priesta did, the Surge probably could have came out of there with a win throughout the whole weekend, but they didn't. So, and then my top number 1 hot seat is Clayster. He's got to get his buns moving. He's got to go quick because he's the bottom pro player at a .86. I felt like, hey, this team's not doing bad. Paris Legion not performing terrible, but Clayster usually was performing terrible. I mean, if you don't think it's Clayster, I'm shocked. If it's me that feels that way and no one else, I'd be surprised. But yeah, I feel like Paris really did hit some great levels, even with Clayster not performing as well as he did. Again, just .86, 400 engagements. Not bad. I mean, if we go to the top players, 400, Sulium had 425. Sulium has been playing a little slower this year, it seems like. He had some moments during this major that wasn't as impressive as I was expecting. I feel like he was one of the detriments for FaZe not getting to the finals. But you just see a lot of these players who played as many times as the Paris Legion did. They were able to hit around 500. He's only hitting 400, 500 deaths. But yeah, Clayster, you're my number 1 spot. All these 3 players, you all need to kick into gear so you don't keep holding your team back. Thanks for watching, and please feel free to like and subscribe and watch some other videos from Midnight Release.